Welcome to The Single Mom Life, brought to you by the Single Mom Network. We are your hosts. My name is Jill Douglas.
I'm TJ Alvarado.
And I am Stephanie Tiller.
The Single Mom Network is an organization developed to assist in connecting single moms to the resources they need to be successful in their careers and businesses while overcoming everyday life challenges as a single parent. Our goal is to connect moms worldwide with the resources they need to utilize going beyond the challenges that we face. So what are we talking about today, TJ?
Okay, well today we are continuing our co-parenting series. And I want to, for those of you that didn't get a chance to tune in, we're going to talk about this because it just really deserves that attention. Right, so we talked with Lee, who represented a firm that helps people with co-parenting and people that go through divorce. And, you know, right towards the end, that really got me, especially the part about, you know, not having that toxic behavior and talking negative about that other parent, about the father. Stephanie, why don't you share with us?
Well, if you guys missed last show, then you definitely need to follow up and binge watch, if you will. But toward the end of the last show, we talked about how it's not healthy talking about your parent, the other parent to the child, and kind of just letting them have their own idea of who that person is, and it's still you know, giving them a sense of who they are without having an excuse, without making those lame excuses as to why they are not a good person in life, or why they don't share the same values as you teach them in the foundation in the home. So I felt like last show was just awesome, and everything that he talked about, it was like, it's not like you don't know it subconsciously, it's just like how to implement it.
Yeah, and Lee gave some great tips. I could listen to him talk forever. I mean, he just had great tips about how to deal with being a co-parent after an unamicable divorce, when things don't go well, and just kind of extricating that. So I highly recommend, going back, watching that. And it's such a big topic. We definitely have more to talk about today.
Absolutely. So that leads us up to today. And I'm very excited about this in particular, girls, because this is really hitting home for me. We'll be right back with our next guest, Miss Diane Dempster with Impact ADHD, who's going to tell us about co-parenting and dealing with different personalities and the dynamics of children that you don't necessarily see right up front. Welcome back to The Single Mom Life, and just as we promised, we are going to continue this talk about co-parenting. So we have with us Ms. Diane Dempster. Welcome.
Hi.
She is the parent trainer and leadership coach with Impact ADHD, and she has a unique approach, which is the coach approach to parenting. Tell us about your organization and how this all came about.
So I, second career, became a leadership coach in about 2008, lost my job like a million other people, and started coaching. And at about the same time, my son, who's now 20, was diagnosed with ADHD. And I had found that the resources were just missing for me as a parent. There's a lot of resources that are focused on the kids, but not a lot to support the parents. And met my business partner through a variety of different channels, and she found kind of the same sort of thing, that there weren't a lot of resources for parents. And when we became coaches, the kinds of tools we learned as coaches were also the kinds of tools that made us more effective as parents.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so we teach parenting tools, coaching tools to parents, and specifically parents who have what we call complex kids. So most of the parents we work with have kids with ADHD, anxiety, challenges like that.
I can absolutely relate to that. I have 4, and complex is probably not enough of a term to describe that. But also being a single mom, also being divorced, I wish that I met you way back then, because this really hits home. When we're talking about co-parenting, it's one thing when you have to make sure that, you know, your behavior and dealing with the other parent is respectable. But then when you have children that are acting out in ways that it was so outside of the norm, because you don't understand that they have these conditions like ADHD or the mood swings or the severe depression. And then as a single parent dealing with that, I needed you back then. So we want to know, we need you to share your resource and tell us, if there was one solid piece of information you could tell that person out there and their kids are acting up and it's so hard, there's disrespect, there's these things, you know it's coming from a hurt place, but you're saying that there's actual real tools to help coach the parents to be better parents, to help those kids in the long term when they're 18, 19, 20, be functional adults.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is that parenting is hard. Right? And co-parenting, when if you're in a solid marriage and you're relatively on the same page, even parenting with someone else is difficult because you have different opinions and different perspectives. You add a complex kid to the mix where, maybe you don't quite agree on how to handle it or you have no idea how to handle it. And most of us, parenting doesn't come with a tool book, right? So you don't learn how to handle a kid, and if the kid doesn't fit the mold, however that is, it makes it even more complex. Then when you go through a divorce or you go through a separation and then you end up co-parenting in different households and different perspectives, there's so much that goes on there, and it does make it really difficult on one hand. And the other thing I would say is that for me, I became single, about 8 years ago, and my kids were middle school. And there was a lot of expectations that I had for my ex-husband while we were still married, that all of a sudden when he was out of the house, it's like, it's my job. I was running the whole household beforehand, and he was doing what he could, but he was not able to carry the same kind of weight that I was. But I was resentful. It's like, why can't you help me? What's going on? But all of a sudden, when I'm the mom and I'm in charge of everything, it was kind of this sense of relief because I'm in charge. But then when you're going through a divorce and you've got the kids at a different household sometimes, and there's different rules at different houses, there's all this complexity that comes up. So you asked me for one tip, TJ. I think that the thing for me is that it's about staying calm and confident as a mom. And knowing kind of what you need, right? And taking care of yourself first. We work with parents around this all the time. It's at Impact ADHD. It's about figuring out how do you stay calm so that you can help your kids to stay calm, so that you can help them change the behavior.
The example. So listen, everything that you said, it kind of it's missing something here, missing something there. Would you ever suggest to get, let's say, counseling or therapy for both the children and the parents, whether they're divorced or not? Would you suggest that? Because I know a lot of people have, we do counseling separate. The children, they go to counseling so that they can talk about what they can't talk about with mommy and daddy. Yeah. And then mommy and daddy go to counseling, but mommy and daddy's only counseling about what mommy and daddy is fighting about. Would you ever suggest to go to counseling with the whole entire family? That way, a lot of these things could be aired out beforehand. I feel like, in a sense that it would help divorce rates because of, like you said before, the lack of understanding and the agreeing to disagree and things like that, and the learn thing.
If you're talking specifically about families that have complex kids, I think that we work with the parents and recommended treatment, just talking about ADHD for a minute, because I know that's one of the things that you were challenged with. Recommended treatment for kids of all ages is get support for the parents. Parents need help to learn how to handle the situations. These kids need help to change their behaviors. So whether it's a kid who has emotional intensity and is acting out, if you have a kid who has a hard time being organized, all of these different things that are difficult for kids with ADHD or with other executive function challenges, you focus on the parent, you help the parent to learn how to parent differently, because the traditional methods of discipline and things that they don't work the same way, right? And so you've got to make some adjustments and tweaks. And so we actually do parent training. And so we do everything we do is online or on the phone. phone, and so it makes it simple and easy for parents to get support for themselves. With regard to therapy, I think that it's so different, and every family is different, and I think that part of it is the dynamic between the two people that are separated and are getting divorced, and how well they're able to be in the same room together. Part of it is giving the kids space and figuring out, because you mentioned a lot of these kids need space to just talk to someone themselves about the dynamic of what's going on for them. But if nothing else, part of it is getting educated.
Okay.
As a parent, so that you can figure out how to best help your kids.
Okay, so really quick, I just want to ask you a question because I'm sure our viewers have this. I noticed 2 words that jumped out at me and I have no idea what it means. You said executive function. What is that?
So executive function, thank you for asking, is the part of the brain that tells you what to do and what not to do and when to do it. So it's the part of us that helps us organize, it helps us to remember, it helps us to not blurt out when we're in a classroom. I mean, all of these things that these kids, and so kids with ADHD and anxiety particularly, and that's a lot of the audience that we work with, have challenges of executive function. And so they have a really difficult time sitting still in class when they're really young, or using their planner and making sure their homework is turned in. I mean, there's all these different challenges that are caused by executive function deficits. And kids with ADHD particularly are often 3 to 5 years behind their same age peers in terms of their executive function development. So there's areas where they act more like a 3rd grader when they're a 5th or 6th grader. They may be super smart and gifted. Don't get me wrong, it's not about how smart they are. It's really about how well they manage themselves.
Their environment and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Exactly.
So self-management is basically your executive function.
Exactly.
Well, I'll be.
So we help parents understand executive function and help these kids to begin to learn the skills of self-management, because when they were ready to learn them, in 3rd and 4th grade. Now
Somebody got onions around here? Who is cutting onions? Y'all need to cut that out. Okay.
Well, and here's what I want to say, because you're emotional, and it's really clear that this is an emotional thing. I personally believe that everybody does the best that they can at the time that they can, and your kids are amazing no matter how you parented them, and they've got the best chance of being
My kids are the
who they're
bomb
going to be.
diggity, let me tell you what.
Yeah.
They're some of the strongest people walking this planet.
Well, and that's what I want to say to the moms out there, because there's going to be a lot of other moms who, and I get this all the time, I get moms who yell too much or feel like they yell too much, and moms who are frustrated with their kids, and moms that hide in their closet because they don't understand how to handle it, or they don't know how to isolate themselves. You were talking earlier about not talking poorly about the other spouse. A lot of people, it's really hard because we're triggered and we're upset, and there's a huge amount of emotion involved in the divorce process or in being a single mom alone. And that's why taking care of yourself becomes so important in the process. And it's hard to do when your kids demand, 250% of your time?
Yeah,
Totally.
that's about right.
Yeah. 250% of your time, and then your spouse don't get enough of your time. Speaking of that, what is it that makes co-parenting so much more difficult, even after the divorce?
Well, part of it is you have 2 different households, right? So you don't have you have a little bit of influence when you live with someone to kind of say, hey, I'm doing it this way. This is what I'm trying right now. We're having a real hard time with him sitting down at the kitchen table. A lot of times when you're dealing with 2 different households, number one, there may be a contentious relationship, and so it's hard to have any conversation with your ex, and let alone one that is about something as mundane as how do we help our kid to change their behavior and remember hang up their towel in the bathroom. Right. It's that piece of it, and then there's so much stuff to do, right? And you get 5 minutes at the most. I mean, most of us is the moms in the driveway drops the kid off, and you pick them up and you head out.
Just to make things a lot more smoother.
We are so masters, right, of scheduling that time, like you said.
Well, and so the important piece of it is that you make a conscious effort to do it, right? And so if you've got a parent in 2 different households, you need to have time together to co-parent. You need to have time together. Let's go out to coffee, a couple times a month and talk about how things are going at your house, how things are going at my house. What do we need to do differently? What's working, what's not? It's the same sort of conversations that we have with our kids' teachers. Yes. This is what works at home, what's working at school. So you want to have those conscious conversations to the extent that you can. And the other piece that you want to do is honestly figure out how to let go as much as you can. And one of my teachers told me, you know, you can't control your kid's relationship with their dad. And it was such a wise sort of thing because they've got to figure it out. And my kids adore their dad. I mean, their dad is a completely different person than I am, and they have a completely different relationship with them. And it used to kind of freak me out because it was very different. And maybe maybe the dad's more laid back than the mom, or maybe the mom is more fun and jovial. I mean, I think that you got to let go of that need to control the relationship that your kid has with their parent, their other parent.
So that is definitely like a common mistake I know that women make, but what are some common mistakes that women make when co-parenting?
Well, I think that part of it is letting the emotion get involved, right? So it's this sort of, if parenting could just be, if a parenting could just be a business, right?
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so here's what we need to do, and here's, you know, but the reality is that if you are calm, you can problem solve, right? So the minute you get triggered and you get upset, or you're remembering that thing that he said 2 years ago, you're not in the part of your brain that's problem solving. You're back here in the reptilian, mammalian sort of fight or flight sort of thing, right? So every time you see
Can you wipe her tears? I'm so sorry. Can you wipe her tears?
Can you help me out?
Well, I'm listening. I don't want to stop.
So you're end up in this fight or flight.
Right.
We will be right back, and we're going to finish this up with some tips and some other great things because we could really talk forever about this. Be right back.
Welcome back to the Single Mom Life. As you can see, many of our topics are very emotional, touching, and we talk about things that are realistic, things that people are going through on a day-to-day basis, not just women, but men, single parents of, you know, single guardians. We're not just going to say single parents, single guardians, anyone that's taking care of someone else. And, you know, this is our second segment on co-parenting. And first of all, I just really want to appreciate you for coming and everything that you discussed today. I'm sure people will want to go to your website. They want to know more about, you know, your tips and gems. And TJ, she's, you know, obviously went through the entire site, and is so much information on there and help and resources in that website and within her company that you guys definitely need to, you know, make sure you check that out. But, you know, we're going to get right into some motivational tips, and I'm going to throw that to TJ.
Okay.
Close us out with a tip.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely encourage you to get professional counseling for yourself when you're going through divorce with these children. There's a wonderful quote that I use, and it says, "When the heart weeps for what it has lost, the soul laughs for what it has found." And it's an old Sufi aphorism. And I speak from experience. It took me 12 years to be able to get here and say that I'm free from the pain of my divorce. And yet, listening to you, I'm learning things about how it's impacted my own children up to this point, because there's different things that they were dealing with then. Parents, let me just re-emphasize, the way that your children are going to heal from divorce is going to be dependent on the way you influence them now and the help or lack of help that you get along the way. That's going to impact them beyond those little years where they're running around on the rug to when they become 18, 19, 25 years old. So please, it's not a bad thing. Get help, and don't take 12 years like it took me.
I would say in all of this, what I heard really, you said something earlier about you're doing a great job as a mom. Like moms, we need to know that we can find a calm space and trust ourselves in our parenting. I know as a single mom, I question myself all the time. Am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? And if I don't have a circle of others around me who I respect and care about as parents, I really just lose it, you know, and I like start getting all in my head and tell myself I'm not doing a great job. So I think really just finding the calm, trusting yourself, and bringing in people who you do trust as well if you're not getting support any other way. It's important.
Yeah. I guess I would say it just slightly differently, which is give yourself some grace, right? It's parenting's hard. Being single as an older adult is hard, and you've got a lot of stuff going on, and so take as much time as you can to take care of yourself. Get your circle, whether it's a therapist or a coach, whatever you think you need in terms of support, but do take care of yourself at least a little bit of the amount of time you spend taking care of your kids.
Awesome. Well, my tip is to understand that the best security blanket you can give your child is the respect that they see you give their other parent. That shapes and molds their entire life. Whether we know it or not, everything that we do as a parent, we're leading by example. They follow us. They see everything that we think they don't see. So I feel like at this moment, you guys need to do some self-reflection if you haven't. So you can take that time and have that self-reflection, have that self-love while you're getting your nails done. Just think about how your maturity is affecting them, and how you treat people is how they're going to treat people later on in life. So you can put a productive, loving, caring child out into this world as an adult, or you can put out a person that's going to need help later on. So you can do it now or later, but it's got to happen, and it starts with you as a parent.
Awesome. Know that whatever you've done to this point, we know that you're doing your best. We want you to continue to stay tuned so we can help you be even better. We all thank you for tuning in to the Single Mom Life, powered by the Single Mom Network, where dreams meet opportunity. We'll see you all next time.